Alrighty, welcome to today's live stream. Today we are joined by Sean Bailey, editor-in-chief at and creator of Horsesmouth's AI-powered financial advisor training program. Sean has spent a lot of time, more than 2,000 hours, working inside ChatGPT and other AI models. And so it's great to have him here this morning. Sean, thank you for joining us today.
Yeah, Doug, glad to be here. Excited to have this conversation about a topic that really I think every advisor in the business needs to get totally up to speed on this. And frankly, I'm concerned that many aren't, but we'll get into that.
Yeah, definitely. So to begin, maybe you could define what exactly you mean by the term AI revolution as it pertains to the financial advice industry, and why is it happening now?
Yeah, so I mean, the AI revolution refers to the unbelievable powers that are baked into a class of new AI models that are available to financial advisors. Many of you have heard of ChatGPT. Some of you have heard of Google's Gemini. I happen to be a big user of Anthropic's Claude. These are large language models that based on some amazing breakthrough that happened in 2017, are able to do things for us. They're able to answer our questions and have deep conversations, but they're also able to do amazing things for us, amazingly fast, with great accuracy and higher quality. And so when I talk about the AI revolution and what it means to advisors, what do we know about financial advisors? Too many hats and not enough time in a day to get it all done. All right. Many things never getting done because they just don't have the ability to do it or the resources until it gets pushed to the side. Now this is all changed. And as we get on to our conversation today, I'll get into more detail. But this new large language models are handing financial advisors the opportunity, it's not instant, to just engage in massive time savings on a whole variety of workflow tasks that they and their team face. So I'll stop there for the moment.
Okay, well, let's get into the concept of AQ, or action quotient. Can you explain what this means for advisors?
Yeah. So, initially, when I said I've been more than 2 years now into using these models, I actually started with an early version of ChatGPT through a company called Copy AI in 2021, I think. And I didn't know anything about prompting, and no one was calling it ChatGPT, no one was calling it large language models. But this company had licensed the technology from OpenAI and had been able to put it together. But and so I started to see, oh, well, this is interesting. They claim it can write marketing copy faster, and so I started playing around with it. And since then the models have just gotten much stronger. November 2022 was the release of ChatGPT. It had 10 million users more quickly than anything ever. And as I've gotten into learning how to use these models, at first I was saying, wow, this is like adding 20 or 30 points to your IQ. Okay. But then, as I was thinking about it and having discussions and reading other people, I don't know where it came up with, but someone said, it's not really IQ. It's your action quotient, because it is an extension. It can be used as an extension of your brain in a way. Ethan Mollick, professor at the Wharton School at the University of Pennsylvania, refers to it as co-intelligence. But the thing that I have focused on in the last 2 years is trying to understand how this technology can be put to immediate use by financial advisors in their practice. So that's where the notion of action quotient came about, because it can get things done if you know how to apply the right use cases. Okay. And so it's not that it just makes you smarter. it makes you smarter and gives you the ability to get things done like never before.
Yeah, and so you alluded to this earlier. Advisors, this it's a professional hazard to be stretched so thin, have a lot on your plate, more than you can manage a lot of the time. So maybe you could get into specifically how AI can help advisors, manage all of those responsibilities more efficiently and just be more productive.
Yeah. So probably just the thing that has come up. We've taught. We've had two classes this summer with advisors, 30 in each group, and uh, the big thing, so I've been working on this for 2 years. I've pulled together a curriculum. We rolled it out in July and delivered it again in August. And one big thing that resonated, right off the bat was the ability when I was teaching how to use the model for client engagement, the ability um, to totally change how you're thinking about your client meetings. So when it comes to pre-meeting prep, people are able to know that they've got a client coming in. I got a couple. They've got an adult son who is been autistic his whole life. They're getting on in their years. They want to talk about trusts. They want to figure out how he's going to be cared for when they pass on. Very complicated issue, emotionally complicated, uh, legally complicated, technically complicated from a financial planning perspective, right? And so, as an example, you can, an advisor in advance of a meeting who knows, or maybe hasn't even had time to prepare for the meeting and only knows roughly the topic, but just needs to, you know, concretize what might actually happen in the meeting. You can engage in a conversation with the AI, explaining what the situation is, that these clients are coming in, these are the issues, and the AI will ask you questions, you will answer, and you can really kind of game out some of the key issues you'll want to be discussing, and then not just broadly brainstorming, but then turning that brainstorm into a draft agenda for the meeting with key elements organized and timestamps next to them so that the advisor knows when it's time to move on if necessary to the next topic. And so people in the class started doing that right away and came back and were saying, wow, this is just amazing. So yeah, that would be an example, one
Yeah.
example for sure.
Yeah. And of course, lots of applications for marketing as well, which I know you
Well,
get
the
into.
marketing, the writing, yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
what we're talking about with generative AI, right? So artificial intelligence has been around with us since the 50s. Um, anybody who's been involved in Wall Street and investments knows about algorithms, and those things have been around for a while. But in 2017, Google DeepMind, the scientists there published a paper called All You Need Is Attention. And this paper identified this thing called a transformer. And that's the T in GPT, generative pre-trained transformer. And the technology the algorithm that they created with the transformer was revolutionary because it gives these large language models, these neural networks, the ability to speak fluently back to us. We can have conversations with them. They can write extremely well. They can speak to us. They can engage in deep conversations. This in a fluent way, right? It wasn't like R2D2, or for those people out there, go back into Lost in Space, Danger, Will Robinson, nothing robotic at all. In fact, quite the opposite. Has the ability to actually be very warm and human-like, which is very unnerving. But also when you realize, okay, so now I have this sort of simulated intelligence that I can now work with and use to get more things done. That's huge. That's huge.
Yeah. And you can get it to learn your own writing style, your own voice, which is maybe a little unnerving too, but also extremely powerful.
Yes,
Uh,
yes, it is.
yeah.
Because a lot of people have misconceptions about, oh, ChatGPT, it's all plagiarized and all the words are plagiarized, and that's like, definitely not true. That's not the case. And but when used improperly, I can detect ChatGPT. I can detect sometimes that somebody's using ChatGPT because they haven't done it very well. They don't know how to use it properly, and it's just obvious. Okay, but you can work with these AI models to learn you and your thinking and your writing style, so that the manner in which it co-writes with you. When I talk about a co-intelligence, a natural output of intelligence is communication. Out of the communication is writing, and so the writing, people. People come in through our class, and one of the things that I tell them is, if you're going to spend more than 5 minutes on anything, any task, you ought to turn to the AI model first, have the conversation, and then go from there. And so, any sort of writing, you can go off and write on your own. You can hit a wall and then come to turn to ChatGPT and try and get out of whatever challenge you've worked yourself into, or you can just engage it from the very beginning. So that's another aspect of it.
Okay, so it seems like, listening to you talk about the power of these tools, that would be a no-brainer for advisors to start using them. But maybe you could give us some insight into what the actual current state of AI adoption and usage is among financial advisors, because I know we've done some looking into that.
Yeah. It's I'm looking for. Oh, good. Here it is, right here. So, we surveyed more than 400 advisors back in the spring about their uses of ChatGPT, and 12% of advisors are using it daily. Okay, that is what I consider somebody who understands. Um, somebody who understands what's going on here, and can see, oh my gosh, this thing can really help me. A huge number of other advisors, 35% are not using it at all. Um, 53% are using it a few times a month. 34%, a few times a month. 35% not using it at all. 53% using it a few times a month. So between the 53% a few times a month and 35% not using it at all, if you're just using it a few times a month, I don't think you really understand the tool. And one thing that researchers have identified, again, going back to Ethan Mollick at the University of Pennsylvania, he says it takes about 10 hours of working with the tool in a focused way for you to kind of get over the hump and really realize, oh, okay, now I get it. Now I see how it works, right? And so we basically have like 88% between the 35% not using it and the 53% using it a few times a month. That's basically 88% really not using it. And so we see a huge opportunity for a lot of advisors to bring AI on board as a co-intelligence in their practice for themselves and for their team members, because it's just that powerful.
Do you think that maybe some advisors earlier on, gave ChatGPT or another AI tool a try, or maybe they were less powerful and sophisticated, or maybe the advisor didn't quite know how to utilize it. They didn't have a great experience. They didn't get great output, and maybe that has put them off.
Sure,
And maybe
absolutely. That's probably what, the 53% that are using it a couple times a month have probably not had a successful engagement with it, an underwhelming engagement. That would most likely be because they treated it like a search engine, and it is not a search engine. Okay. That is a huge mistake that people are making. It's a natural mistake because we're used to having this little box and we type some words in. I monitor the search terms that at Horsesmouth that advisors enter in for us, and they're almost always one or two words. And the typical Google search term is 2 to 3 words, right? That is not how large language models work. They're not search engines. They have cutoff dates, and you really should be doing your search elsewhere, probably with Perplexity, and we could talk about that later on. But yeah, what's going on is people don't understand prompting. You need to understand how to talk to these models, how to communicate with them. And that's this thing that's called prompting. And basically, it's how we use our natural language. This is what's amazing. This is called no code coding. In essence, we now have the power to leverage the enormous abilities of these computers in ways that computer programmers could in the past leverage the power of their underlying operating systems, but they needed to know these computer languages, C++, Unix, um, going way back to BASIC or Fortran, whatever the case may be. Um, and what is another aspect of this revolution is that it runs on natural language processing, meaning that our language, our use of English, can engage the model to do what we want. But you need to give it not two words. You need to really understand how to structure your conversation and your requests with the AI model in order for it to understand the context of what it is you're trying to achieve so that it can then give you the best answer.
Yeah.
And that's the ones that aren't using it. I don't believe they've crossed that. They haven't crossed the 10-hour bridge, or maybe even before that, they haven't crossed the oh, this isn't a search engine bridge. This is something else.
Yeah, it really is something where the more sophisticated you get using it, the more you see more potential to use it, how powerful it is, and then your eyes really kind of open up to
Yeah,
what's
yeah.
possible.
It's funny, in Ethan Mollick's book, Co-Intelligence, he talks about three sleepless nights that people who get over the hump and then suddenly realize what's going on, their mind catches on fire, and they often have three sleepless nights just thinking about this and trying to reckon with how powerful it is and how to use it in their own lives. And sure enough, somebody in our second class, we meet 4 weeks in a row for 2 hours, and then we have an optional 1 hour kind of clinic open office hours kind of thing. And so we get together and chat, because in the other 2 hours I'm like teaching. And this one advisor didn't know anything about Ethan Mollick's three sleepless nights, but he said, having some sleepless nights, this is just so amazing, I can't get it out of my brain. So the sleepless nights, definitely, the 10 hours, definitely a part of it. 10 hours training on it, three sleepless nights, internalizing it. And then when you reckon with what we have here, what the power of it is, then, I find people are extremely energized by it, in fact. So that's what's also very exciting. The people who've come to our class, the advisors we've trained, leave and they're just like, they're so, energized and enthused about their ability to save time, be more efficient, and produce higher quality work for their clients, and to get the same from the people on their team.
Yeah, and there's no going back. Like, AI is now with us, and there are those who are going to benefit from it, and there are those who are going to be not.
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
so for the advisors who are watching, and they are one of the advisors that you talked about, who either haven't really touched it, or they're only doing so sparingly, not enough to use the full power. What do you have to say to them about the potential consequences of not using these tools, especially as time goes on?
Yeah, well, this period that we're in now, I was lucky enough to have had a significant career in the newspaper business as a journalist, leading up to 1994, 95, when you may recall Windows 95 came out. Netscape had just come out as well. People were starting to move away from CompuServe and AOL, or they were getting the ability on those platforms to go out onto this thing called the World Wide Web. And, so as a journalist in the print world, I saw people, I was amazed by it. I had been kind of reading, I'd had a Mac computer, I'm not really a super tech person, but I had a Mac computer and I was reading about bulletin boards, and I bought a modem that I never could configure it to get on, but I had this Mac magazine that had all these pictures of people on bulletin boards, like, exchanging information. I couldn't get there. But then when Netscape came along a few years later, that totally changed everything. And, I was in the newspaper business, and, so I was enthused by what was going on. I suddenly realized, oh my gosh, we can publish stuff electronically and use this thing called FTP to post this page. And suddenly anybody in the whole world that has a computer and knows the address of this piece of content can just see it like that. And of course, we all had email by then. And so it was totally, earth changing to me, shattering. But there were people in the newspaper business who were totally dismissive, highly skeptical, totally dismissive. And as a consequence, unfortunately, they were left unprepared, and it totally eviscerated, the daily newspaper industry to the detriment of society. I will say, actually. And so I feel like we're in a similar time in terms of this is that big. This is another type of GPT. Another way of talking about GPTs are uh, uh, general purpose technologies. So the steam engine was a general purpose technology. The light bulb was a general purpose technology. The internet. These are huge things that have so many consequences that fall out of them, or have abilities that people can tease out of them. The internet was like the same thing, right? Who'd have thought? Who'd have thought the first time you saw a Netscape browser that you'd also be carrying around this, thing in your pocket that's slightly larger than a deck of cards that really has your whole entire life on it. You can pay. It uses directions. It takes photos. It records audio. It records video. It can do your writing. Now, soon these things are going to have these large language models. Smaller versions of large language models are actually going to be on our phones. They're already starting to show up there. That's called being on the edge. And so, yeah. So, in terms of what was your question, Doug, about being concerned about?
Yeah, well, like, what are the consequences if you don't
Yeah, right. People. Yeah,
start
right.
using these tools? Other
Yeah.
people are, you know?
Well, look. There's two ways to go, as I see it. Or there is a certain dividend that the proper use of this technology is delivering to any knowledge worker, and financial advisors are knowledge workers. Okay. So it can save you time, and then you can have more free time to do other things. It could be more work, or it could be, live your life to the fullest, right? You don't have to stay in the office till 7 o'clock. Now you can leave by, say, 5, or whatever the case may be. It'll be up to you it'll be up to the advisor who chooses to work with AI, how they're going to use that dividend, that time savings and efficiency savings dividend. And people will probably split it, to some degree. Although, frankly, I think a lot of people, what happens is they get so excited by it. It's just like they're getting way more done. That's kind of the way Americans are, I think, in some respects. So yeah, there's that piece of it for sure.
And I've heard you kind of describe it as having like an executive assistant helping you out, right? That's a good way to think about it.
Yeah, that's
Um,
absolutely true. And one of the things in my class I preach is to treat the AI model like it is an assistant, because when we get into understanding how do you talk to these AI models, how do you command them or guide them to do the things you want to do? Well, the best way is to actually view the model like you would an employee, a new assistant, a summer intern, whatever the case is. You have a project for them to do. You wouldn't just, have somebody in your office just throw them everything that they need to do. You would stop and say, well, here's the situation. Basically, it's kind of like who, what, when, where, why. Here's the who, what, when, where, why of the situation, right? We've got the Smiths coming in tomorrow. They've got a couple kids that are ready to go to college. We need to make some decisions about how they're, going to, what bucket of money they're going to use to pay for the kids' school. And, you give people the context and the details to complete whatever the project is. And so that's understanding how to talk, treating these, anthropomorphizing these models, meaning giving them human attributes like names. Basically, I have some silly names that I refer to my AI models, just because I have conversations with them all day long, typed conversations, although soon it will be, spoken conversations as well. And so it just helps you when you're treating it like a human, it helps you deliver a more thorough and nuanced and richer context of the situation. And these AI models need the context to understand what it is that you want from them so they can do it. And they're very eager to do it. They're very eager to please. And but they do need direction.
Yeah. Okay. So a few times you've mentioned the AI powered advisor program. So I just want to make sure that people, if they want to find out more information about it, it is starting at the end of this month, September 26th. Did you want to talk I get that link out there? You want to talk a little bit about the program, Sean?
Yeah, well, it's 4 weeks. It's a 4 week program. We meet 2 hours a week for 4 weeks. The first week is kind of introduction to generative AI, and then introduction to how to communicate with your AI. I go heavily into prompting. I teach a very specific framework that helps people get the most effective prompts. The second week, Devin Crop comes on, and we spend it on marketing. There's just huge opportunities for advisors and their teams to um, use these AI models to be more effective in their marketing. And so we spend, um, 2 hours looking at a whole variety of ways that you can use a ChatGPT in your marketing. And then the third week is about client engagement and how you can use these models to be more effective. Some of the things I was mentioning at the top of the hour about better client prep. Also, after the meeting is over with the client, just huge, amazing things that you can do to speed up your ability to get good, usable notes from your client meetings, including, figuring out who's going to do what, the follow up, the drafting of the email, all that sort of stuff. That's one piece of it, and there's other aspects of using the AI model for, you know, uh, being able to connect more deeply with your clients under certain situations. Using the AI model to assist you to in educating clients when they have certain challenges around financial planning concepts, whatever the case may be. And then in the fourth week, we kind of bring it all together. And we kind of lay a little groundwork for what to do now, how to start using it actually in your practice. We've shown you a variety of use cases, how to bring it to your team, how to anticipate some resistance from your team, and what are the best ways to address that and overcome it. Those are the four main aspects of the program. And each week we have an hour-long clinic the very next day. That's kind of open questions, and we also spend some time diving a little more deeply into some of the things that we had discussed the day before, or challenges or issues or insights that people are gaining as they're starting to use the AI models in their work.
Yeah, so if you want to learn more about the program and sign up, you can go to horsesmouth.com/AI. That's on the screen right now. It's also in the description wherever you are watching this. And yeah, take a look at some of the testimonials on that page, because the advisors who have been a part of this so far they've been loving it. And I highly recommend you check out what they have to say, because we think you will like it and find it useful as well.
Yeah, it's
Uh,
a lot of fun too. We have a good time.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, okay. So some questions that we commonly get about AI and the use of it, Sean. I know probably the number one question that we get in all the webinars you've done about it is the compliance and privacy security. Advisors being concerned about security and privacy of client data when they are
Sure.
using
Right.
AI. So, is this how big of a concern is
Yeah,
this?
I mean, the question comes up. The answer is very simple. There's two levels of it. First of all, like any other situation, you wouldn't be sharing your client's personal identifiable information or data um, outside of your own network, right? So, like when I'm talking about having conversations with the AI model about the couple that's coming in that has the adult son, they want to create a trust and so on. It's like you're not using you're not getting into details, identifiable details. Well, not that anybody's really going to care, frankly. I mean, I don't think OpenAI is sitting there in the background trying to figure out, whose son needs a trust, right? But the point is, you wouldn't be sharing any identifiable information at that level. Um, but as you get more deeply into it, and there are levels of service that one can engage ChatGPT or Anthropic at, sort of team or enterprise levels, where there are additional data and privacy and security safeguards as well. So that's the security and privacy side. Compliance, I've talked to a couple of RAA compliance experts, and they say, at this point, um, you know, uh, people are, what can we say? I've been in this business for 20 years. Some people's compliance is fine and open. Some people is like the absolute extreme on the other side. And this is going to be just like any other situation you've run into with your compliance, right? And you just want to be smart about it, right? There's no need to risk your own situation or risk your client's data. You just need to be smart. But it doesn't really seem to be too big an issue. I think a year and a half ago, when ChatGPT exploded, there were some corporations that said, we don't want this on our advisor's desk. We don't want it on any employee's desktop. And they bolted things down and made it impossible to use. What they found out in the surveys is that people were still using it anyway. They're using it with their laptops, their personal laptops at work, or their iPhones, or whatever the case may be. And so, I think that was swung way to one side. And I think, we're coming back, and we will continue to come back to some, middle ground, middle road, where there's a balance between obviously being, smart and responsible about how you're engaging the AI models, so that you're not endangering any data, and also yet you're still able to get from it everything that you need in terms of its, benefits.
Okay, and people are also very curious about, the learning curve involved in adopting AI and how long it takes to start seeing these tangible benefits.
Yeah, right. So, I mentioned before this idea that, working with it for 10 hours kind of really gets you over the hump. But the truth of the matter is, if you're guided as I guide people in our class, people can, I mean, the class basically is 10 hours, right? But sooner than the 10 hours, people are leaving with some small homework assignments or some activities we're doing right in the class. And people are like, oh my gosh, I can't believe this. And so, yeah, people will be able to start from the first day. People will, from our first 2 hour session, people will be able to start seeing the power of the tool and the use cases that we're teeing up for them. They're all like, fit hand in glove with everything that the advisor is doing, so people can immediately see how to put it to use in the workplace.
Yeah, yeah, the homework's great. And it's just like you described, when people go in with a specific use case and some language in terms of some prompting language to help them get started, they just see that focused output, and it just helps them get there way faster to what they're looking
Yeah,
for.
yeah,
Yeah,
a lot of wows, a lot of wows.
yeah, exactly. Okay, so another question: can AI really understand the nuances of personal finance and individual client situations? Okay, obviously those are very complex things. Is there any risk of providing generic advice when you're using these AI tools?
No, I mean, listen, you're using it as a co-intelligence. You have already been advising clients your whole professional career. Now you have a partner who is kind of there on your shoulder, who may be raising some questions you hadn't thought of, or probing a little deeper on something, or pointing in a direction that you hadn't thought of. I think we had an advisor in our first class who had a long-term client coming in the next day, and he had sold an apartment building, so he had a lot of liquidity, but he was also very conservative. And this advisor kind of had a conversation with ChatGPT about this particular type of client, and very specifically also about, okay, what are the range of possible things that we could do with this money that's coming from the sale of this apartment complex. And the advisor was blown away by the level of detail and nuance that was delivered. And so, The answer is it's not generic at all. If you ask a generic question, you might get a generic response. But this advisor was in the class, and he knew how to engage the model in the right way, so that they had a very meaty and productive interaction that ultimately flowed into the creating of the agenda, and a hugely successful meeting transpired.
Yeah, this is one concern that like fades away immediately when you
Yeah,
start
right,
knowing
right.
what you're doing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Okay. Okay. Great. So I also wanted to make sure that people knew about a webinar that you put on called "Advisors AI Isn't Magic: Learn to Talk to ChatGPT the Right Way." So if you want to get more information and some specific use cases about how you can use ChatGPT specifically and how you should approach it, go to horsesmouth.com/ChatGPT. You can watch a replay of that on demand when you register for it there. If you want more information, it's a great next place to go. So, Sean, any closing words before we say goodbye?
No, I hope we're gonna people can see that webinar. We're gonna also put it on live as well, and I think our class starts, our October class, which actually starts September 26th, is filling up again. So uh, take this opportunity to jump in, and really it'll change your view of work and technology, and it's an amazing journey. So come aboard; it'll be a lot of fun.
Absolutely. Okay, great.